Tenemos una charla más antes del break, la comida y la hora del socialité. Y les vamos a dar un dato. Bueno, en realidad les vamos a dar cientos de ellos y no se los vamos a dar nosotros, sino nuestro siguiente exponente que nos va a hablar de una circunstancia que ha venido a cambiar la experiencia en la industria del deporte. Y hablamos de la Big Data, que tiene pues una cobertura ya a nivel mundial y que realmente ha venido a transformar la manera en la que se ve el deporte.
El análisis de datos, la inteligencia artificial y el contenido hiperpersonalizado para ofrecer experiencias únicas para los fanáticos, mantener además a los aficionados comprometidos y potenciar la pasión por el fútbol en cada rincón del mundo. Para esta ponencia, Data Driven Revolution, cómo los datos están redefiniendo la conexión con los aficionados, le damos la bienvenida a Maurits Schoen, Chief Operating Officer de OneFootball.
Hola, buenos días. Voy a cambiar a inglés porque me siento mucho más cómodo presentar en inglés. So thanks for being with me, especially close to lunch break. I actually cannot see your faces because the light is so bright, but I assume many of you are already hungry, so thanks for joining the talk. Maybe to kick it off real quick, my name is Maurits, I'm the Chief Operating Officer at OneFootball, and who of you does know the brand OneFootball? Who's maybe even a user? Okay, I see a few hands, that's good. For those of you who do not know the brand, it's good because I've given an intro of who we are, and then I'm actually going to talk about a little bit of our community here in Mexico to give you an idea of how big we are in this country, and then I'm actually going to talk about our innovation, so where we're heading with the company from the starting point where we're at or where we've been in the last few months, and what our idea of a hyper-personalized experience in the digital space looks like. So, quickly starting with what OneFootball was and what OneFootball is today. This is what OneFootball was, and the company was already founded 17 years ago, which is a long time. I was still in high school, as you can imagine, and we started actually with sending short messages of live scores to Nokia phones. So when people back then were still playing Snake on their phones because there was no smartphone, they were receiving text messages from OneFootball with the current results of their favorite teams. This sounds far away, but it was actually the starting point for what we are today, which is actually building an owned and operated business, because our founder already believed back then that you need to create a direct relationship between the product, the company, and the user. And the text messages we sent back then were the starting point. This is who we are today. We are the biggest digital football platform in the world. We exist across all devices. As you can see, at the core is obviously our app, but we have a very strong social presence. We have a CTV app, and we obviously also exist on web. But the core focus will be the owned and operated business, because we're going to talk about data. And data is the most easiest to collect, and then obviously build profiles and personalization in the app. It's much more difficult on web and kind of impossible on social, because an intermediary sits between us and the user. So, as said, we've been around for quite some time. And right now, the core of our product is the app, where we bring together the basics of every football app. So it's scores, it's live stats, it's articles, it's news, it's rumors, but it's also live content. So we have quite a significant OTT offering these days, and we're advancing our product over the next few months, and I will talk in more depth about that. But what is the most important piece is that we already bring together both sides of the football ecosystem to our platform, which is so-called partners, clubs, leagues, federations, brands, and the fans. To give you an idea of how big we are today, we reach around 260 million people on an annual level. We have 30 million so-called members. I'm going to get into that in a second. 200 million fans. This is people that we reach through our distribution network. So we have a video player that we embed on other platforms and reach a lot of people with that. And then we have around 32 million of followers on our social channels. as you can see, we are very strong in Europe and the Americas. These are our core markets. We are usually among the top 5 most downloaded sports apps in Brazil, Germany, but also Mexico. And in Italy, we've been the #1 sports app for quite some time. Now, zooming in on those 30 million, because this is what matters most. These are our registered users. What does that mean? These are people that have created a login on OneFootball. A login means they share email address or other login credentials, and from there we start a user journey and we start collecting data. These are the most relevant people to us because we can reach them at any point in time, also outside of our app. And this is our core focus when we talk about monetization and personalization. We have developed our platform not only from being a scores app into a news app and also kind of a publisher. This was what we were in the past. We had over 80 people working in our own newsroom, but over the last 5 years, we've really developed into a platform, which means that we not only onboarded content creators, which is newspapers, blogs, but also, and this is the most important part for building our ecosystem, we have around 150 clubs, leagues, and federations that have an official channel on OneFootball. The 12 big icons that you see here are actually shareholders in our business, which helps us because we're in constant dialogue. We're currently always developing what the needs of the ecosystem, meaning the rights holders, in this case clubs, leagues, and federations are, and we can help them to work on solutions to fix their challenges. This way, we are a real platform, having users, having rights holders, having content creators, and this was our starting point for what I'm going to talk about now. This was the short intro of who we were, let's say, 12 months ago. Quick zoom in on our community here in Mexico. Just to give you an idea, we have around 7.5 million people that we reach on an annual basis, around 500,000 monthly active users in the app. Again, this is the by far most important cohort for us. And those users are actually very active, just to start with a little bit of data. So as you can see, we have around 40 million monthly sessions in this country. 26 million of those happen in our app. And you can see Mexican users are very engaged. They come almost twice a day. So we have 52 sessions on average per user on a monthly basis. This is on eye level with social platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, etc., which is core to our offering because it gives us the opportunity to really get to know our user. On the other side, you can see the brands we've been working with. As you can see, that's also the typical brands that are big sponsors in sports. How does that come? Digital activation and sponsorships has become very important. And OneFootball creates this perfect channel for these brands to actually activate their assets, their sponsorships, because they can digitally activate in a brand-safe environment around the content of the clubs, leagues, or federations that they are sponsoring. So we often provide them with packages where, let's say, a MasterCard has been a sponsor for the UEFA Champions League for many years, and what we are able to do is digitally activate their sponsorship around everything that happens in the UEFA Champions League. So now on to our innovation. Now you know who we were, and now I'm going to tell you who we are and who we are becoming, and what we have been working on over the last 12 to 18 months, and what we will be working on probably the next 12 to 18 months. So first of all, we realized we have built a platform. We bring both sides of the ecosystem together, and we have a very loyal user base of 30 million by now and increasing month over month. So we started registering users 2.5 years ago and have built from 0 to 30 million. What then happened is we made an observation, and I think that observation for everyone who's been in the football space has become very apparent over the last, let's say, 24 months. There's a fundamental shift. Football has always depended a lot, especially on media rights. The international and national media rights auctions are the most important income source for clubs and also for leagues and federations. But there's little people who still consume 90 minutes of football. So football clubs, leagues, and federations that depend on these rights packages have realized they need to come up with a lot more appealing content for Gen Z that is mobile first, it's purely digital, it's available on demand, and they need to move away from making their income so heavily dependent on live rights, which are not as interesting as they used to anymore, and we already see a decline in revenues from that source. The second piece is football has become, for many, many fans around the globe, a purely digital product. So brands like Real Madrid, Manchester City, United, you name them, they have fans around the globe. So they don't have this locally rooted community anymore that they address, but they need to address actually millions around the globe. And those people will never have the chance, many of them will never have the chance to actually go to the stadium. So they need to create engaging content and building a real relationship with fans on a purely digital level, which is a lot more challenging. And then they don't only want to build fandom, but they only want to convert these people actually into customers, because this is what it comes down to, right? They want to make money. So all these developments lead to a problem for them because they are not able to address the user or the fan the way they want to and actually bring them to become a customer. Why is that? Because on social they don't have control. They can reach a lot of people, but they don't own the data. They cannot access these people. And on their own channels, it's simply very high acquisition costs, right? Having your own OTT platform, having your own website, everything, it's easy today, it's commodity. But bringing a significant amount of users to the table is much more difficult. This is where we realized that we're actually in a very good position to help the ecosystem solve a few of these challenges. And what we defined as our new mission is we want to deliver the best fan experience. What does it mean? So experience is what it comes down to. As said, scores, stats, OTT, news, it's all commodity. You can get it on Google in a second. It's nothing exclusive anymore. If Ronaldo breaks a leg tomorrow in Saudi, there will be 1,000 content sources on the internet publishing this in the same minute. So the content itself doesn't bring you the user anymore. What you need to create is actually an experience. So we want to position ourselves as the real, we call it the tech platform as a matchmaker. So we bring together the fan and the other side of the ecosystem, which is the rights holders, and create an experience that sticks and that makes them stay. The starting point for a good experience is always content and personalization for us. So here you can see the user flow of someone onboarding on OneFootball. The first few questions we ask a user is actually you can choose your hat today, so you can choose how you want to look like. You can claim your own football ID. So my ID, for example, is Maurits.football, which is unique. Nobody else can have that ID. And we are asking you which club you follow, which national team you like, and obviously in which language you use your phone. We then ask you to activate push notifications for the things you're interested in, and you can start personalizing your news stream by following as you would do on social, on TikTok or Instagram, right? So you can choose the club that is your favorite one, you can only have one, and then you can follow other interests such as players, clubs, leagues, competitions. And thereby we start creating a personalized stream. So we're actually initiating a conversation with the user by asking him first questions and then tracking what he's doing on our platform. This then leads into us generating a lot of data, right? So we have around 200 touch points on a daily basis with a user. This can be, does he read long articles? Does he prefer short articles? Does he consume vertical video? Does he consume highlights? Does he consume OTT matches? So we start to get to know our user through the data that user leaves on our platform. And we start to enrich the profile of that user with a lot of first-party data, but also zero-party data. So we are really trying to understand who that user is, and from that starting point, building a hyper-personalized experience that at some point will be as unique as your fingerprint. And this is where especially AI will help us speed up the process, because currently the content experience for a Liverpool fan here in Mexico is still very different than a Liverpool fan in the UK. Why is that? Because there's obviously a lot more news outlets publishing, or blogs, or the club itself, in English than in Spanish. AI can help you with translation and obviously also with content creation, making long-form articles shorter, because we know your preference is to read a short article. And that accounts the same for video content. In the long run, we will add audio content. So we will try to make your fan experience not only digital, but also tailored to your personal preferences when it comes to when you want to consume content, in which format you want to consume content, and in which depth you want to consume that content. This is the only way we believe we can create an experience that really sticks with the user. Because, again, content itself, it's commodity, news is out there, there's no breaking news anymore, so it's really about tailoring the experience. I don't want to go too much into detail, but this is, for example, a short user profile that we have just generated from some of our employees, actually. So we're finding out a lot of things, right? And not all of them need to be directly monetized, but they all have value. They have value for us. They have value for brands when we do tailored advertising, because we know, for example, how much user likes to spend. We know that the user is tending towards D2C, so to actually purchasing something on OneFootball. We know also sometimes the marital status of a user, more or less the income. So these are all things that everybody knows that the internet can collect these. But we are trying to put them into a football-only experience and make sure that we use this data only to create the best experience for our users. This then enables innovation. As said, content is the starting point because it allows us to have this conversation, this dialogue with our users and getting to know them. And now, the next step in our evolution was to ask ourselves, how can we leverage this to not only be a great content experience, but to benefit everyone in the ecosystem? I think for brands, it's very apparent. For brands, it's good to do individualized cohorts, people they can really address with their products and services. For publishers, it's also clear they are part of the content experience. But then there's broadcasters, there's merchants, especially for merch or ticketing, maybe even betting in the future, and then there's clubs, leagues, federations. They're already part of our ecosystem, and the next evolutionary step for us is to help them create not only a user relationship with our fans or our users on OneFootball, but also convert them into customers. So we are trying to build the D2C layer, direct-to-consumer layer, on top of our content flywheel that constantly brings users into our network and constantly shares data with us. So what we have started 5 years ago is we have built a plug-and-play OTT service. OTT service, this means we are a streaming platform, but we are purely asset light. What does this mean? We do not own any rights, we do not invest into media rights, but we only bring a platform and our massive user base to the table, and we allow broadcasters, clubs, leagues, federations to plug and play on our platform, leverage the data we have because we can help them convert, and leverage the user base we have. A few examples here. In Germany, we work with all big broadcasters. We work with DAZN, we work with Sky, we work with Magenta. They all use us as a distribution funnel, and they use us to address the new generation of fans. What does that mean? A DAZN subscription or a Sky subscription costs 50 euros a month, roughly, right? So you need to be in a position to being able to spend that money, but also willing to spend that money. And if you know you only occasionally consume a live match, that's probably not worth it. So what we are offering on OneFootball is an unbundled version of their product. So we have a pay-per-view offering. So it's only $5 per match. And we know the users that like to occasionally consume a match through the data that we already gathered. So we are actually able to convert around 26% of all club fans in Germany into a paying customer. And we help the broadcaster monetize their right with a cohort they would probably never address through their own channels, or those people would go to piracy because they only want to watch one match. We then develop this and not only have pay-per-view, but we also have the ability to sell club and league season passes, something that you rarely see in European broadcasting. So this year we had, for example, the Serie A selling exclusively on their channel on OneFootball their rights in the UK. We will launch Club TV with one of Europe's biggest clubs in about a month. Why are they going with us? They could build the platform themselves. Again, it's licensing a right to a software, but they know that we bring already 2 million of their fans to the table that they then can easily convert into paying customers. And the model here is a pure revenue share model. So we always just collaborate, we are the platform, we are the matchmaker, and then we help them to amplify and monetize what they have already in terms of media rights. The second piece, and this is, I think, the next step of our evolution, and this is where we started about half a year ago in Germany only, so it's still a bit in the testing phase, is moving from not only having digital goods to physical goods. Because the other revenue stream for people in the football business is obviously merchandise. And again, it's about creating an experience that sticks, because you can get a Manchester City jersey almost anywhere, right? But what matters is addressing the user at the right point in time and giving him the chance to have a seamless experience in our app purchasing it. What does that mean? Going back to the content flywheel and content being the top of funnel for everything, we tag our articles. And we, for example, know that there is, I make up an example, but it's pretty real life what we did last summer, 30,000 people, fans of AS Roma, reading an article about a leak of the new Roma jersey. So we know these 30,000 people are actually pretty much interested in how the Roma jersey is going to look like next season. The moment we know this jersey is then actually coming into our store or the Roma store, we're working with retailers here, we're also working directly with clubs. If we can address this user sending a push notification, letting him know that the jersey he has been interested in so much, the likelihood of converting that user into a paying customer is much, much higher than if that user would learn it somewhere on TikTok and then would then have to go to the AS Roma shop to create a new login and buy the merch. We want to bring it seamlessly to OneFootball because, again, the seamless experience is what matters because this is the only thing that sticks. And then the last layer of this is we don't only want to gather data. You've seen all the things we gather about our fans. We also want to give back. So what we do is we created our own loyalty program, which is kind of an engagement engine again, because the more you engage with content, the more you engage with predictions, the more you purchase, the more you like, the more you share, the more rewards you will get through OneFootball. And this is our own, then challenges and leaderboards and reward system, where we do exclusive raffles. So if you're part of the community, you can win money can buy experiences, or you can win tickets, or you can win a jersey, or just a discount on your next OTT match that you're going to purchase. So this is the last layer. We launched it last year, and we really see higher engagement of the users that are part of these loyalty systems. And maybe then as a last step, and then it becomes very technical, so I'm going to try to keep it short. The idea is also to give ownership of the data that we gather back to the fans. I think this is the last step that ultimately, and I heard it in the conversations in this room before, data is kind of the gold dust, and everybody knows it's worth something, but it's not really clear what it's going to be worth. But I think what matters the most is the person that actually is creating that data through that time spent with us has also ownership. So what we are going to build in the future, that's already in the making, is we're going to have not only these fan profiles stored on OneFootball, but we'll also store them on blockchain and give user ownership back to the user themselves. So if a user would ever leave OneFootball, which I don't hope, right, they could take that data, go to another platform, plug it in and say, this is the last 10 years of my football fandom, and this might be worth something. It's definitely worth something to the new platform because they can use it for personalized experience. They can use it for brands to do personalized advertising. So this is really the ultimate step of then making sure that the ecosystem comes together and also the fan is getting something back for what they've done. So we have, as I said, come a long way from sending text messages to building a data-driven football platform that is going into the D2C direction. And we're really trying to bring value to everyone in the ecosystem. Thanks for your attention. For those of you who have not downloaded OneFootball, this is your opportunity now to do it and get to know our product. For those of you who want to connect with me, this is my LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out. We have 1 minute and 30 seconds. If there's any questions, please reach out. Yeah.
information and content. So maybe I can repeat it. So what are the trends of preference regarding Mexican fans about information and content? And how, and the other question is, how can you make those data, for example, XG, to be more suitable to raise the level of debate here in Mexico?
So I think the preference of users is rarely country specific. So especially I think our user base is very young. We have a lot of Gen Z users, so we know approximately 80% of our users are below 34. And what we see is a consumption that is heavily tending towards short-form video. TikTok has changed the world, we all know that. It has become more visual. Long-form articles are not a real preference of the younger audiences. And what we also see is our platform is used a lot as a second screen. So people might watch a match or might watch highlights and they second screen. We know 60% of our users are second screening. So even if they watch a match, they don't focus on that match, but they go through to the scores and stats of other matches or to the stats of that match, or they're making a vote for the current best player. So we are really trying to create these engaging experiences, because this is what we realized. The pure consumption is not what they are looking for anymore. They're trying to engage with that content, share it on social, or just, doing something with it instead of simply consuming. Thank you for your question. Time's up? Okay. Thank you very much. It was my pleasure, and happy lunch break.